The Vikings, like, you still have JJ McCarthy, and the thing is, both of them have injury issues. So you at least have someone like JJ McCarthy who's been there a year, who you're not paying a ton of money. And I don't think a lot of teams looked at him last year and like, oh my God, you have Kyler Murray now. Let me pick up the phone and see if JJ McCarthy's available. Like, that's not happening. I don't think it is, but
Yeah, I can also say like the last few years in Arizona, a breakup was imminent, especially after Cliff Kingsbury left. You didn't have a great receiver core. You had dysfunction in the locker room. The head coach wasn't the right fit. So if there's any place that you're going to fail, it's really like the Browns, the Jets, and then the Cardinals. And what he did in Arizona, the little amount that he did, he's still going to go down as maybe their best quarterback outside of maybe Kurt Warner and Carson Palmer. For quarterbacks that they've drafted, he's definitely their best.
Carson Palmer, still kind of the GOAT in Arizona. And then we go to the Falcons, didn't really do much. They lost Darnell Mooney, though, huge loss. And then Carolina hasn't done too much either since we did week 1 of free agency. The Saints, taking a look at them, haven't done too much worth noting. The Bucks, same thing. And then we're on to the West. And that brings us to the NFC West. We didn't recap the AFC or NFC West because we're going to be doing our kind of preseason overall, give our thoughts on what they did last year and heading into this year, if we're hopeful with what they need to do in the draft. So now we have a little bit of an idea on their free agencies for these teams, and then we go through each team's draft needs as well, and then if we think they'll actually be good, especially with their coach, kind of give you our predictions for who's going to be the best team, the worst team, and the most surprising team in the division. So why don't we go ahead and start with the NFC West? I have the players that they signed if you want to quickly bring up the players that they lost in free agency. Most notably, they lost Kyler Murray. They have another head coach at this point, and they signed Matt LaFleur's brother, Mike LaFleur, and he is now going to be their new head coach. And then they have signed Gardner Minshew to a 1-year deal, Tyler Allgeier, Kendrick Bourne, Semi Foko. They sign guard Matt Pryor, Isaac Simule, offensive guard Elijah Wilson. They also signed defensive lineman Andrew Billings, re-signed LJ Collier, signed Roy Lopez, signed Jonah Williams to their defensive line, also signed safety Andrew Wingard. So a lot of activity for the Cardinals, and noticeably, they signed 3 new offensive guards on this team to take care of their offensive line. So a lot of and you get Kendrick Bourne, who's a solid receiver, Tyler Algier, who's a solid running back, and Gardner Minshew, who is a pretty good backup to go along with Jacoby Brissett, while you're finding your way and potentially trying to go out there and find your quarterback. And, maybe you trade for someone like Anthony Richardson, or you just look to the draft this year. But overall, with where the Cardinals are selecting and who they signed this year, what are your thoughts on them this offseason, and what else do they need in the draft?
So honestly, for me, I like the Tyler Algier signing a lot. James Conner's coming back from injury. Tyler Algier has kind of been overshadowed by Bijan Robinson in Atlanta, but he's been a really solid back. I like the pairing with him and Connor. Gardner Minshew is going to be a legend in Arizona. I can already tell. He's going to have a 4 to 5 game stretch where maybe he makes a nice comeback. There's an overtime win, and he's cemented his legacy in Arizona. So I like the Gardner Minshew signing. He's going to be a great fit in the Tempe area. And then other than that, they got Devin Duvernay, who I think is a nice addition. The receiver core is a little bit stronger than it was last year, which was something they struggled with. And then offensive line, they do have the 3rd overall pick. If I'm them, I would attack maybe edge rusher. They have Josh Sweat. They have a couple other nice linebackers. Mac Wilson's nice, but they could really use a good pass rush, and I think they'll be able to pick one at pick 3. Offensive line's always a problem for them, so they can always use that. But I think the big thing for them defensively is going to be where they should focus. Buda Baker's getting a little bit older. Maybe you can pair someone alongside him. Will Johnson was a hit for them this past draft. He's been good for them, but honestly, their focus should be pass rush and offensive line help.
Yeah, and I think the interesting thing for Arizona is they don't really have too many glaring holes at their skill positions on offense, which is a unique position to be in, I feel like, for a team like this, because you sign 3 offensive guards and you pretty much shore up the interior of your offensive line. So now you just need to address right tackle in the draft. And you have James Conner, who's coming back from injury, but you also signed Tyler Algier. So you don't necessarily need a running back, but you maybe spend like a third or a fourth round pick on one and see if you can hit a stroke of luck. But really, all you need right now is focus on that defense in the draft, specifically just getting a edge rusher, and then this year can be a solid rebuild year until you find your quarterback. But overall, the Cardinals are the worst team in NFL history, but you have one of the LaFleur brothers taking over as your head coach and Matt LaFleur's brother, and now you go out there, spend some solid money on the defense. You sign 4 defensive linemen. One of them was just a re-sign, and then you also sign 2 safeties in Andrew Wingard and Casey Craters. So honestly, I'm kind of optimistic for the Cardinals as far as they finished last year with a lot of close competitive teams, and for a bad team, you just want to see that they still have some fight. They're still going out there trying, and now you just need to fill your quarterback position. And you don't have too many needs or holes on your offense outside of right tackle now. And then you just need to attack that defense in the draft.
Yeah, and I think that's what they're going to do. Maybe they go edge rusher. You already know I'm going to say his name. Jeremiah Love is another guy. If you want to move on from James Conner in training camp, you get a guy who we've seen teams be successful when they draft a running back early and what that can do for their offense. The Falcons with Bijan made a step forward, having him. We know what Saquon's done. So maybe they go that route if they want to be aggressive offensively, if they do plan to get a quarterback in the next year's draft. So that's what they may do. Maybe they shore up their offensive line, but they got a lot of talent that's available for them at that 3 spot, whether it's linebacker, whether it's edge rusher, or if they want to go running back. I think either way, it's unfortunate that they're in a division as stacked as the NFC West, but from 3-14, maybe they go 6-11, but build for the future and potentially get their quarterback either this draft or wait till next draft when it's going to be stronger.
Yeah, so overall, to recap, I'm feeling pretty positive about the Cardinals offseason so far with who they've signed. You haven't lost anyone too horrible. You part ways with Kyler Murray, but that opens up the door to go out there, get another quarterback. But this is still the worst team in NFL history, so we do have to keep that context in mind. Are you, in summary, feeling positive about the Cardinals' future?
Yeah, that's small moves, but they're moves that I think are going to pay off for them. Tyler Algier, Gardner Minshew. It's not going to be a team that is fighting for their division, but it's also not a team that's going to be a team that shouldn't even be on television so bad. So I think they're going to be competitive, similar to how they were last year, but maybe with their new head coach, deliver on some of those wins. I think there is going to be a win improvement. 2 to 3 wins is what I predict so far, but definitely I would give them a thumbs up for what they've done so far this offseason.
And then for Gardner, this also might be the most offense he's ever played for, as far as for Gardner Minshew, because he came into the league and he was with the Jaguars, pretty bad
Bad
offensive
team.
line, didn't have too many great skill players. He's played for the Raiders. I mean, he was the Raiders era with Josh McDaniels, I believe, when he was there. And then he was also with the Raiders when they had some pretty bad offenses. And then he goes to the Chiefs, seemingly probably the worst offense the Chiefs have ever had last year. And I don't think he's played for too many teams with a high flying offense. So you have Marvin Harrison Jr., who should be improving. You even have Michael Wilson there. You have one of the better tight ends in the league. Now you have Tyler Algier and James Conner, who's coming back. So I do think this will probably be some of the best talent that Gardner Minshew's played with. Also Jacoby Brissett as well.
Yeah, I think it's going to be nice. And I do think there's going to be a moment where Gardner Minshew does play. And I think he's going to play fairly well for them. So I'm excited. I think he's going to be a hit. Arizona's going to love him there.
He's definitely a fit there. And then we move on to the Rams. Who isn't a fit with the Rams, if we're being honest? They re-signed Tyler Higbee, re-signed David Quessenberry, signed linebacker Grant Stewart. They traded for Trent McDuffie with the Kansas City Chiefs, and they gave the Kansas City Chiefs 2 first-round picks to rebuild their team. I mean, come
And
on.
he
No
passed
one
his
can forgive
physical.
them for that. And he passed his physical too. And then they also signed Jalen Watson at corner, re-sign Cam Curl, and then they also sign Joe Cardona as well. If you take a look at really the Rams' needs that they had coming into this year, is pretty much just defensive secondary help and offensive line depth, and they already have pretty much addressed that. And they gave up their first round pick because now they can just focus on the draft. You have Trent McDuffie, who's one of the best corners in the NFL at this point. So now the Rams are set up to be better than they were last year. They have Devontae Adams, and then they're going to have some of their other running backs come in. I think in the draft, you probably focus on offensive line and then seeing if Sean McVay can hit on another running back just for some more depth because I like Kyron Williams. But when it comes to paying Kyron Williams a bag, which I think they have to do in the next year or two, it's not someone I would want to overpay for. And I think some team is dumb enough to do that.
Yeah, I think the Rams, I mean, I thought they were the best team last year. They fell short in the playoffs, but they get Trent McDuffie. That's automatically going to make them better. They have a decent secondary now. We already know how good Jared Verse is. We already know some of the other draft picks that they've landed the last few years. Obviously, Puka and Devontae is great. So their offense is fine. Realistically, if you can get someone to pair with Blake Corum and Kyron Williams, that could be great because I don't think they're going to sign Kyron Williams to a long-term deal. But outside of that, it's really just depth at this point. This team should be the best team in the NFC West next year, especially with some of the losses the Seahawks and Niners may have had. Yeah, I mean this team should be 13-4, 14-3 next year and vying for the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and really all they need is depth on their offensive line. And then after that, it's is Matthew Stafford going to play for a long time? But they're going into the draft already taking care of their biggest need, which is corner. And then if they can hit on some other picks, this team's going to be really scary. But overall, do you think the Rams are kind of going to be the same team? Or do you think we have another team in Seattle? Do you think with all the teams, all the players that Seattle has lost, they should be the favorite in the West?
I put them as the favorite. Absolutely. They had secondary issues last year. They get one of the best corners in the league. You already had a great offense who just won the MVP. But like, absolutely, I think the Rams should be the favorite. And actually, surprisingly, let me double check this for sure, but I'm pretty sure the Rams actually still have a first round pick. I'm going to just fact check that real quick because yeah, they have the 13th overall pick, it looks like, from Atlanta. So they still have a first round pick that they can go and use.